Do you like those tasty licks? That was courtesy of Michael R. Fletcher. You're welcome, guys. All right, let's get into it. Today we're gonna be talking about dun, dun, Beyond Redemption by Michael R. Fletcher. Beyond Redemption came out about 5 years ago. I want to say it came out 2015, and since then it has, it's gotten quite a bit of criticism. After reading the book, I can certainly say it's not for everybody. But one thing being, it does have that number one spot on the grimdark. We're nailing it down. The Mark Lawrence blog kind of grimdark list. Beyond Redemption holds the number one spot, and after reading it, I think it deserves it. But also, because of the criticisms, I kind of thought I was only getting into just a dark and dastardly book. But really quick getting into it, I started to realize, man, this thing's so much more than that. This was a great, dark, epic fantasy. It's just the scope of this thing goes well beyond just being a dark tale. Let's get into it. Beyond Redemption takes place in a dark world infected with fear and madness, where the delusional men and women known as Geisteskranken are basically able to bend and manipulate reality itself. The story is about a geborene Dämonen high priest and how he is hell-bent on basically creating this new god from a child. He wants to create the god because he wants to control him, as well as he was trying to kind of usher in what he perceives as order amongst the chaos of this world. Now, in this world, not everybody, holds things sacred. So now we have three criminal characters that are hatching up a kidnapping scheme. They want to kidnap the godling child and ransom him back. And really, their only motivation here is just to fill that selfish greed. This, of course, triggers a series of events that include assassination and rescue attempts, as well as a secondary kidnapping scheme. The story has an extremely original feel, and, the world and the magic are obviously a huge part of that. All the mental illnesses and psychoses all get powers in this world, but it's really apparent that Michael R. Fletcher did his homework, because it's not like powers are just haphazardly given, all nilly-willy. No, I mean, very well, the powers make sense with the delusions they're connected to. Fletcher also does a really good job of playing with deep-seated traumas and just issues. This really helps us flesh out the magic system in this book, just as far as varying levels of power and whatnot, but as well, it helps us really flesh out the characters. The characters in this book are just like the name of the book, Beyond Redemption. This isn't really a story of, with character arcs that are all redeeming, it's just, that is not the case. But like I said, it could be easy to just, write all these characters off as horrible people that you can't relate to. But the thing is Fletcher gives us that insight. We really get to see what makes them tick. It can be at times easy to forget because these characters are powerful beings. I mean, they're doing something that is just so amazingly powerful and awesome. But then you also get this glimpse of just who they are, and they're all broken and shattered and weak, and we get to sit in that and play with it, and just it was a breath of fresh air, because I just felt like these are horrible people, but you're enjoying reading about them. It was a lot of fun. Like I was saying before, I really noticed, this book in that original feel that it has. Another thing that really hit me in the face right out the gate was Michael R. Fletcher's character work. This is some of the best, well-balanced character work I've ever read. There's quite a few characters in the book, and I enjoyed them all. And there are maybe one or two that might have outshined the rest for me, but not by a whole lot. For the majority, I just really liked all the characters. He even threw some minor ones in there I'll talk about in a sec. I was just blown away. They were just so well done. Let's talk about these characters. First, I want to talk about Koenig, because Koenig is essentially multiple characters, and a lot of that is because of his delusions. Now, Koenig is our geborene Dämonen high priest. He's the one that's trying to take the godling child and, make him ascend, become a god so that he can control him. Now, Koenig is what's known as a gaffergeist. And gaffergeists are basically sociopaths, and they like to be the center of attention, and they're usually the ones that are collecting these followers. They need all these believers, to really, accept them and believe in their cause so they can make it a reality. But Koenig is also something called cormobic. There's a lot of words in this that got me tripped up, guys, so excuse me if I got it wrong, but I think cormobitic. Koenig is cormobitic, and that is like where he has multiple delusions at once, so essentially he has more powers. Now, in this world, the more powerful you become, basically the closer you are to having your delusions destroy you, which is one of the big driving forces for Koenig to try to control this god, because he's also trying to kind of save his own skin, because he's beginning to become more powerful. He's not only, just this powerful Gaffergeist, he's also a doppelgangist, so he has these multiple versions of himself, but they're really like parts of his personality personified. So he has 3 of them, and then he's also taking on new abilities as a mirrorist, which is a very strange power. But anyway, he then also has his reflections, who kind of act independently as well. So you have all these different versions of Koenig. It's just complete fucking bonkers. None of them trust each other. They're all basically fighting each other and scheming and backstabbing and betraying one another, trying to basically become the, get that number 1 spot. Everybody wants to be Koenig, what I mean? Whether you're his doppel or his reflection. And really what it comes out of all of this is just so entertaining. It's a lot of fun to watch a man really at war with himself. Then we have Morgan, who is the godling child. This is the kid, man. He's very sheltered in the beginning because he's basically just cooped up in Koenig's castle. Koenig is too afraid to let Morgan go anywhere or do anything because he's kind of afraid of him being like infected by other people, and like his whole plans of creating some kind of order will all just be for naught. So yeah, Morgan's basically, I kind of feel bad for Morgan in a way. Yeah, he's super fucking powerful, or he's going to be, but man, he just gets manipulated and used and abused by everybody. Everybody wants a piece of Morgan, but it's not because they care about Morgan, it's because they want what he's got, that power. They want to use his power to push themselves further in that dastardly direction. We got Stellan, who is basically, this is one of our criminals. She is the female of the gang. She's also what is known as a kleptic, which is like a kleptomaniac. And her power is basically, she just can't control stealing, just much like a real kleptomaniac. The cool thing about the power here too, though, is most everybody she steals from, even if they catch her, they can't really remember it. It's like she leaves a fuzzy memory in your head, so she gets away with it a lot. And then we have Benedict, and Benedict is basically one of the very few sane characters we have in this world. Yeah, he's an over-the-hill warrior kind of type. He's a criminal, he's, maybe you could say that he's kind of the leader of the criminal trio there. I do think it's kind of funny, though, because everyone talks about him, being sane. Like, being sane in this world is almost like being insane in our world. But anyway, it's just, there's kind of like this argument that you could make that's like, yeah, Benedict's the sane guy who only keeps the company of insane people. And then we got Witch Tigg. Now, Witch Tigg is definitely one of my favorite characters out of the book, and I'm assuming if you've read it or if you do read it, he'll probably be one of yours as well. It's just his role in the story. Now, Witch Tigg is a Gaffergeist like Koenig, but he's kind of considered a minor one, and he he uses his ability and his power to pursue becoming the greatest swordsman ever. And that whole deal is actually quite a lot of fun in the book, and it kind of lets you into parts of Witch Tigg's personality. Now, Witch Tigg is the third member of our criminal trio, and he's also, though, pretty much our comic relief throughout this book. As dark and disturbing and gross as this book is, it's also really funny. And a lot of that is because of Witch Tigg. I do kind of see Witch Tigg as, man, he reminds me of like Lestat almost, like if Lestat was like a swordsman, because Witch Tigg is just, he's like what happens when you give a character 20 plus charisma, you know what I mean? He is a handsome, just devilish, just charming guy, but at the same time, he's the biggest asshole. He's extremely manipulative, and everything he does is for selfish reasons. But he just pulls it all off with such flair. It's so enjoyable. Like, nobody but Witch Tigg can do all this shit while you're reading it with a smile on your face. Because anybody else, you'd just be like, man, fuck this guy. But yes, Witch Tigg, lots of fun. And, you know, like I said earlier, you know, we really get to see what makes these characters tick. And one part I really loved about Witch Tigg is just the fact that Witch Tigg hates himself. Now, he won't really say that out loud, and really he'll just always kind of promote how badass or awesome he is. But when it all boils down, the one person he hates more than anybody in this world is himself. And, you know, his actions, his motivation, you know, it makes sense. Like I said, I was really impressed with Fletcher's character work in here because, yeah, you might not be able to relate to these guys, but I guarantee you, you will get their motivation, especially when you start to deal with these traumas or these issues that they have from their past. Probably my absolute favorite character in the book was Guern, though. Guern is, she's a female character. She's what's known as a husbrand, and that is basically a pyromaniac. And she has got some horrible issues from her childhood, and that's kind of what manifested her delusions and her powers, and maybe even is reason why she is as powerful as she is. But so many people are afraid of her, and like kind of the one thing she craves, which is like love, which is kind of fucked up when you start dealing with these dark characters. You start to realize the soft sides of them, and Guern is definitely seeking love from goddamn anybody that'll give it to her, but nobody will. She's kind of like in a situation like Morgan, where at best all they're gonna do is use her for her power. But yeah, man, she was so much fun to read. Her appearance really got in my head. It really, like, I could just envision her probably better than any other character in this book. Her powers, everything was just so much fun. I mean, I could see Guern sitting there with just barely any hair on her head left and those eyebrows scorched off, giving her that surprised look. And she's just standing there in her robes. And she's so fucking, like, filled with fire and heat that you could see the waves emanating off of her, and the ground beneath her begins to boil, and you can smell her flesh cooking. Oh, it's so good. Big ol' thumbs up, Michael R. Fletcher. You created one of the coolest, darkest, craziest characters to ever get inside my head, and I'm so glad. Now, almost assuredly, the one character that's gonna fuck you up, make you disturbed, or just, you know, the one that you might, regardless of how well it's fleshed out, the one you might hate and just want to die, is the slaver character, Erbrecken. And now Erbrecken is, he's another gaffer geist, but because of something that happened in his childhood, has kind of pushed him, like, in his power in its direction. And now he's just basically claiming people wherever he goes to worship him, and this becomes a very dirty, nasty scene. Most of these people that are following Erbrecken are, you know, they're barely clothed, they're covered in piss and shit and mud, because they don't even take time to take care of themselves, because all of their time is devoted to worshiping Erbrecken. And man, he plays, you know, he's just with I don't even want to go into it. Let's not try to spoil anything. I will just say this character is as dastardly as they come. And a lot of times I hear people like kind of trying to describe him or like compare him as like this, he's Jabba the Hutt in this book, but I don't really see him as Jabba the Hutt. What I did see him as, I don't know if anybody has seen the very first Blade movie, had a vampire character named Pearl in it, and this was like Del Toro's like crazy makeup, just gone scary. But Pearl was a very obese vampire that was just nasty to look at. And so anytime I, read about Erbrecken in this book, I couldn't help but think of Pearl, just this morbidly obese, chubby, baby-looking character that, you know what I mean? His actions alone are so dastardly, but, I mean, just looking at the guy, ugh. The last little bit I kind of want to add as a testament to Fletcher's character work in this book is there's these two guard characters. Now, these guys are basically, they're so minor to the story. You could take them out and it wouldn't change plot. Nothing would change except for it might just, they're so well done that you would miss out on their entertainment value. These guys, like I said, very minor characters, and realistically, all we get out of them is their conversations about how they didn't see anything, so now there's nothing to report. But I just thought that this was so well done, and this is exactly what I was talking about, like in one of my last reviews when I said I'm impressed when a writer can take a minor character that doesn't give any weight to the story, but then make you enjoy them. It's like they don't even need to do that, but if they can, whew, and these two guards were just amazingly fun for being, super minor characters. I also want to talk about Michael R. Fletcher's prose in this book. This is the first time I read any of his stuff, but I was super impressed. Very impressed. I feel like Michael R. Fletcher has one of the best proses for dark storytelling. Man, just the way he described... This was a very gross tale, way grosser than I guess I was expecting. I mean, I just knew all I was expecting was dark and disturbing, and I got that and some extra. You know what I mean? I think I was really blown away with how gross, Fletcher just sprinkles grossness all throughout the book, man. And I know I have seen some criticisms about how he just is kind of saying these descriptions over and over and uses them too many times, and people are like, yeah, we get it already. But man, I totally disagree, because some of these descriptions that you get hammered with repeatedly, I feel like they're just ramming a point home, especially when it comes to when you're looking at Erbrecken and because they're always describing his fat jiggling and that and this and that. I don't think that that's overdone, because I honestly feel like if you were in that situation, every time you looked at this guy, that's what you would think before you had any other thought. First thing out of your head is, oh my God, the fat jiggle. Yeah, it's very well done. As well as, man, in part of this book, Michael R. Fletcher describes movement as liquid death. Anybody that does that is big old badass in my book. Guys, it's very easy to see that I absolutely enjoyed the hell out of this book. I love it. I actually took a day off when I was halfway done, because I was enjoying it so much. It was like, dude, is this my new favorite book? Is it? I had to take a day off just to really digest everything that I had read. And even after finish, I would say, yes, this might be my fucking new favorite book. It's that good, to me. But that going into that, this is where I want to talk about the cons of this book. The big one for me was the names of places and people and all that. The trying to pronounce half the stuff in this book was really tough for me. I'm not really good at pronouncing things as it is. So, I was probably already starting at a disadvantage. So this was definitely this was hitting at my weaknesses, my reading weaknesses. But trying to say Geisteskranken and Geffer Hasbrand, all that. And, there was one thing in here that I was like, it's a town, it's Gildengalengaheten. Yeah. That's right. Trust me, it took me a long time to be able to say that. And as I was reading it, I'm like, I'm just imagining Michael R. Fletcher at his computer they'll never be able to figure that one out. Honestly, I don't know. Maybe he really did think that people were going to be able to pronounce that easily, but I don't know. I don't know how, man. Some of this shit is just bonkers. I did start to understand that some of it is just German. Or maybe a German slang or something. I don't really know that. I'm not going to go into all that. I just know that that's the biggest con for me, was trying to read this book It's just tough. It's tough to pronounce some of them words. It reminded me kind of like Dune, you know? Like, it made me think of those people that were the first ones to read Kwisatz Haderach. You know what I mean? Because that's kind of how it felt reading this book. Another thing I want to get into as far as being a con, but this is not a con personally for me. Like, this was, beyond pro. But we got to just mention this because you're going to see me gushing about this book. But what I don't want to do is put a bunch of hype out there that's like, oh, this book is for everybody. Or, you know what I mean? Like, hey, Mark said that Beyond Redemption is fucking amazing. We should all read it. It's like, look, it is amazing, and you should read it if it fits the kind of story that you like to read. Because I do feel like this story could definitely offend and piss people off, and I'm sure there are people that have read it, and those are probably a lot of those shitty reviews it's got. Because if this is the kind of story that you want to read, it's like so beneficial to your dark soul. I swear, it is worth your time, guys. But if you are not into the grim dark stuff, if you're not into a dark dastardly tale with characters with little to no redemption value, you're not going to like this if you're looking for heroes. You know what I mean? Like, this is not that story. But what this is just original and thought-provoking. I mean, with the world and the magic combinations, I spent so much time thinking about like the possibilities of what different illnesses could bring about, like magic wise. I mean, this is a book that you read but then you think about after you're done reading, and that is impressive. So like I said, if you have like a weak stomach or you're not into like really dark themes, this covers it all, especially a lot of sexual deviance and stuff like that. I wouldn't say it's too graphic, but it's there, guys. So I mean, if you don't want to have any part of it, definitely don't go into this. It's a dark, disturbing, gross tale, and I love it. But some of you might not, and that's just the facts. It kind of hurts to say that, like, I can't really, promote this to everybody, but that's just the way it is, guys. Like, some stories kind of become niche, and as much as I hate to say it, this is kind of that one. The people that love this book are probably never gonna shut up about it. And then everybody else is going to talk about how it's just grimdark for grimdark's sake, which I don't really like that critique, because for one, I feel like it's a little lazy, but two, Michael R. Fletcher didn't even know what grimdark was until after he had written the book. So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense now, does it? Now, as far as my 2 cents for the slow and the struggling, if you guys are interested in this book, I would say the struggling reader, just beware and tread lightly. This is a grimdark book because it checks all those boxes, but when you really boil it down, guys, this is an epic dark fantasy tale that has a big scope, and it may be a little larger than I would throw a struggling reader at, as well as if you struggle with those, just pronouncing words that are crazy like I do. It's a lot of people do, and there are definitely some words in here that are going to eat your lunch, guys. So just know that going in. If this is something that you're ready to challenge yourself with, just know that those struggles exist. As far as slow readers, man, guys, like I said before, if this is your kind of thing, buy it, get it, borrow it. I don't give a fuck what you do. Just read it. It is not going to be a waste of your time. This is just that good. But yes, I'm only talking to the people that want to read a dark, dastardly tale. So, as always, thanks for spending some time down here at the channel, guys. And to Michael R. Fletcher, a gadoosh. 2 thumbs up, bro. You are a madman, and you should probably seek professional help. I'm just joking, man. This was awesome. Thank you so much for creating just the craziest goddamn tale that I have read. It just brought me so much joy to the black heart here. Thank you. If you're new, guys, please like and subscribe. As always, peace.